Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm sure some of you have been waiting on the second half of the XAKU video. For those of you unaware, this is a continuation of the previous video where we were looking at the new XAKU augments, the Relentless Lost and Vampiric Grasp. Today's video will focus on the Vampiric Grasp augment for Grasp of Lohk. It works as advertised, giving you back 25 health per hit against any enemy affected by your lost abilities. Now I know a lot of you asked me about this augment, how to use it, and whether we can use the two augments together. After thinking on it for a while, this is my take on it. No, you don't want to run augments together. If anything, it is actively detrimental to run the two of them like that. The Relentless Loss eats up a mod slot and gives strength that only applies to his 3. This is one less slot to build strength for his 2. And if you build strength for his 2, it completely defeats the entire point of the augment for his 3, where the main draw is for easy armor strip and less slots. Sure, the inflated damage and denies beam is nice, but really no one uses denies the primary source of DPS on the loadout. At best, it's just support. Vampiric Grasp also only heals health as the effect and only gets enemies affected by your 3. This has twofold issues. One is that healing like this is irrelevant. Low level enemies are so weak you won't even take enough damage to die anyways, and your Grasp of Lohk will shred them. On Steel Path, they will not do enough damage to consistently kill enemies instantly until you go to very high level thousands, as stolen damage scales faster than their HP, or you full strip them. This means you won't be able to kill them fast enough to out-heal the incoming DPS if they live long enough to shoot you back and get past your shield gate. You may also be thinking of trying a Combat Discipline Arcane Avenger build. Don't bother. Grasp of Lohk guns are not treated as weapons. They are not affected by Avenger's crit buffs, Vigor Swap, Arcane Arachne, or other elemental imbues such as Shock Trooper. Literally nothing can increase its damage except Roar. The second reason is we live in a shield gate meta for Steel Path. Unless you devote slots to build up HP and adaptation, which takes 2 mod slots, the heals from this augment are not enough, where shield gating only needs Rolling Guard. Sure, you can hit 4 to 5 times a second to heal over 100 health with the augment, but enemies will hit you for hundreds of damage at once per second on Steel Path. If you give up slots to build for HP and DR, well, remember you're also giving up a 3rd mod slot to fit the augment. You now only have 5 slots available. It's very difficult to make a cohesive build with this augment, so honestly I would say it isn't worth it. I don't know, maybe you'll find a way to make it fit in your XAKU build somehow where I couldn't. The one thing I've been told is that for some reason it can also heal your pets. I'm not sure why this works, but this technically means your Panzer can stay alive more consistently, at least on base Steel Path, for even less downtime on its viral quills, but if you go in Endurance it's gonna get one shot anyways. Maybe that's enough to make it useful to you? But we also already have Pack Leader, and bringing something like a Gunblade, which we already can do to deal with acolytes, would instantly heal your pet. You're already not even using weapons anyway since you're relying on Lohk. If anything, bringing Epitaph like I've shown here will give much more consistent viral procs than Panzer with how much you're moving around. It could be some peace of mind to not have to actively use a Gunblade to heal them though. Let me show what I mean. This is the Grasp of Lohk centric build I run on my XAKU. It's almost identical to the Gaze build we just finished making. Grasp of Lohk builds usually prioritize a ton of range, which Gaze builds normally can't do as much. The Relentless augment fixed that and let Gaze builds now run Giga range as well. This is because the range on Grasp of Lohk to make the guns shoot is very small, only 8 meters at base. It takes a lot of range to make them seek well. So what's the difference between this build and the one earlier? Literally just the augment. We dropped Relentless Lost for Blind Rage. We need strength on this build to fuel the guns. We still pass 200 strength this way for full strip on Gaze ores if you want it. The energy economy is also much worse than the previous build, but I personally believe with good gameplay, it can still be easily sustained since you only need to recast your 4 once everything is up, with a massive energy bank from Prime Flow and Arcane Energize to fill it. Arcane Eruption is also for the easy knocks against enemies for even more CC. The extra strength lets the guns kill enemies even outside of the armor strip zone, which you can supplement with an AoE viral primer like Epitaph. Only the viral status matters, since Grasp of Lohk cannot benefit from any condition overload mechanics. This is a generic, pure viral Epitaph with Prime Fulmination to spread as much status as possible. Anyways, let's get back to the Grasp of Lohk XAKU again. You may have noticed I ran rank 4 overextended. This lets us reach 200 strength without having to rely on growing power, letting us play safe with Brief Respite and Rolling Guard still. But there's another reason. The number of weapons stolen cap scales with range. It scales per 16.7% range, and always rounds down. So 250 range is exactly enough to let us steal 15 weapons. To steal 16, you would need 267 range. A max range overextended would only get us to 265, which isn't enough to increase the weapon cap. In exchange, you lose another 10 strength and fall under the 200 strength threshold for Gaze, while gaining an extra 1.2 meter attack radius to 21.2 meters on the guns. I don't think that's worth it. I'd rather run the 200 strength with 20 meter attack radius and also save the 1 mod point. Now, with how tight this build is, what would we drop for a Vampiric Grasp? The only real options are Prime Flow, which might just barely work if you don't cast Gaze at the start, as you will have enough energy to still cast your 2 and 4 with 1 bar to freeze your abilities. Airburst over Zadda's Whisper could be handy for dragging enemies into the Gaze areas like I said, and also as a temporary CC for a breather while regenerating your shields. Alternatively, you could run Roar for a 61.2% damage increase of Lohk. I personally prefer Airburst for the CC utility, as the damage increase from Roar isn't enough here to be worth it. You could also consider running Breach Surge, as that does actually still work quite well on this setup. You just need to be very wary of your energy economy, because that can actually get quite expensive with how mobile Lohk builds are. You could alternatively drop Prime Continuity and keep the massive energy reserves with Energize. But now you're casting way more often. Vast and Time will only last 18 seconds, and the base duration of Lohk drops to just 8.7. While the energy can still be sustained, it becomes a lot easier to just recast your 4 and lose your Grasp of Lohk. This can get pretty annoying, as for me I usually draw the line of minimum duration on being around 25 to 30 seconds for abilities that are mandatory to be active for a frame loadout to function properly. Or you could drop Ruling Guard if you're feeling ballsy. After all, you do have Arcane Eruption to take some advantage of extra CC. But what do you get at the end of all of this? Just some HP heal, and for your pet as well. And we don't even have health or adaptation on the build yet. You'd also need to slot the Augment, like I said, so let's just not run it, shall we? Here's some more Steel Path footage, this time showing the Augmentless Grasp of Lohk build I've been using. Now, I'm not saying you must run the same thing as me, but these are my thoughts on why I feel the Vampiric Grasp Augment isn't worth it. Feel free to try it out yourself if you think there's a use for it. Also, remember stuff like Magus Elevate exists. It's also super ironic, because in the end the Relentless lost Augment for Gaze fixed the range problem while leaving the energy economy intact and not having to build for strength on a armor strip focused XAKU that doesn't need its 2. But this build starts looking quite similar stats wise to a Grasp of Lohk build, even though it's different. The Lohk build on the other hand is way more energy intensive to get firepower, but it still works. The Lohk Augment barely changes anything. It doesn't open up more build diversity. It doesn't do anything the rest of your loadout could probably do, even better. And it doesn't open the door to bridge the gap between his 2 and 3. In fact, it makes the gap worse and wider. Grasp of Lohk XAKU is already really good and has no use for this augment. Where you can heal, you don't need it, and where you need the heal, you die anyways. Final verdict, grab the Relentless loss if you want to fiddle around with it. It's decent and allows a bit more build diversity to focus on range, while still having massive quality of life. I wouldn't pick up the Vampiric Grasp. In my eyes, it's garbage. XAKU doesn't really have enough armor or DR available to make proper use of it. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible, like I've done with covering the Sisters of Parvos and Plaguestar updates. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. I'm also preparing to get you the info first once more new war info drops. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.